Well, I got bored of BL4, so now I'm doing a Souls weapon review. Used the save editor to give myself the weapon and the minimum stats to wield it. Let me start by saying it's very slow and uses a lot of stamina. You'll only ever get 3 swings out of it, but you'll only ever land 2 because your target will leisurely waltz out of the way. But at least its starting damage is mediocre, and it has hyper armor, so you're guaranteed to tank hits that would otherwise be avoidable with a better weapon. And the cherry on top, a sweet spot mechanic, meaning when an enemy is right in front of you, your close range heavy melee weapon will be doing less damage. 86 damage here, and 121 damage here in what I presume is the sweet spot range. I know it wasn't counter damage because the next hit was 86 again while he was still in his attack animation. Could be wrong about that though. In case you haven't noticed, I am not the biggest fan of the Great Axe, even though it killed Vanguard, who I normally die to. I'll be the first to admit that the start of this run was rough and the axe has a bit of a learning curve, but for a weapon this slow and heavy, it's not unreasonable to expect it to one-shot most of the basic mobs. Luckily, the roll attack is much faster, safer, and it does more damage, for some reason. I'm fine with it not one-shotting these knights this early into the game, but even at the end of the game, it doesn't get close to one-shotting them. I could use a faster weapon and still two-shot this guy. I could one-shot most everything else, but the problem is, so can a normal longsword, while being lighter and faster and more mobile. Killing these skeletons with the roll attack was pretty fun, but that's about it. And I still had to tank hits half the time. Can't even one-shot the goldies. Can't one-shot these guys either, which I would have liked considering this is an earlier game area and I'm quite high level and have a fully upgraded axe. Now that we've established my disappointment with its performance against all the enemies I'd expect a weapon like this to excel against, let's talk bosses. Well, against Phalanx, it actually did a lot better than other weapons I've used. The problem I personally have with heavier, slower weapons like this is the heft ends up translating to a slower boss kill and more unsafe mobbing. But that wasn't the case here. This was pretty fast. I've died to this boss with other weapons. And fortunately, for once, most other bosses also fall really easily. Like the Armor Spider, for instance, died nice and quick. I compared this damage against the Bastard Sword and it was significantly higher. But it was less than the Great Sword while not being much faster or easier on the stamina bar. But it's not like this boss is hard or anything, so we move on. It was at this moment in the run I farmed for more Greystone. Like I said, we'll talk about that later, just know from here on in I have a +5 Crushing Grax. Now, when I have to farm for Greystone, I normally finish out World 2, then go back for Tower Knight before doing the rest of the worlds. But remember all those flaws I pointed out in the start? They're all at play against the Flame Lurker. This was just awful. Funny thing about Hyper Armor, bosses also have it, so you're rooted in place for no reason when you're fighting a boss. Being in pure black tendency doesn't help, I understand that, but having any other weapon would have made this an easy fight. The light attack is significantly slower than some of the Flame Lurker's attacks that will two-shot me. Every time I get hit, I have to back off to heal. Every time I hit, I have to back off so I don't get hit by the counterattack, which only works half the time because the Great Axe is so damn slow. See, bosses get stunned in this game if you breathe on them a little too hard, so for most bosses a faster weapon means you can stun lock them super easily. It also means that heavier weapons will always be at a disadvantage because you won't be able to keep the boss in place long enough to deliver multiple hits. I shit you not, excluding farming, I spent half this entire run retrying this boss. I think you can guess what tier this weapon will end up in. It got so bad I decided to leave and kill Tower Knight early so I could have full health against Flame Lurker. And even against what could be considered the second easiest boss in the game, the slowness of the Great Axe still found a way to kill me. That's alright though, because this was very satisfying. With a full health bar, all the problems I mentioned were still present, I just had the ability to survive them. And it couldn't even do me the courtesy of one-shotting Dragon God. Mercifully, from here to the end of the game, everything dies very easily. Just want to point out that a normal dagger can completely kill her here, but I got lucky and she decided to pop right back up where she started. The Maneater fight was a little weird, this one kinda just flew in place, so I wasn't able to get much information out of it other than the damage is good. For the second one I learned that the Maneater stay in place long enough even when not acting weird that a slow weapon isn't a big deal. Actually pretty fun fight. Hooray! I don't play PvP in these games at all, so this is as close as you'll get to a review on that, and it's very funny. I love how the last hit in the R1 combo knocks NPCs back. The Adjudicator was a pure and simple one-cycle. Most of the bosses after the Flame Lurker weren't a problem at all. Which doesn't say much because of how easy most of the bosses in this game just are. What I think speaks volumes for how cromulent this weapon was against bosses is the fact that after killing Tower Knight, I didn't die once for the rest of the run. Something which is backfiring on me now, since while you have a body, you make more noise, meaning Old Hero can hear you better. Other than that, this is a boss that's mobile enough and has enough hyper armor that you'd be better off with a faster weapon so you can stun lock it. Storm King doesn't count towards the weapon rating because I use the Storm Ruler because I'm not an idiot. Leechmonger just sits there, so is an ideal target for weapons this slow, but would also be taken out faster with a faster weapon. Similar story with the Dirty Colossus. It doesn't move around a whole lot, but is more offensive than the Leechmonger and has more health. Still not much of a problem since it will just tank hits. Yet another unfortunate saving grace of a weapon I desperately want to hate is how easy it is to just pancake NPCs, which I covered with the old monk. Made this fight, which can be annoying, absolutely trivial. And this part is always trivial, so who cares? Penetrator moves around a lot, but Penetrator moves around a lot, but at this point in the game I'm tanky enough that I can comfortably trade blows with it. So long as it doesn't backstep out of range. Oh, this is interesting. Because of the attack animation, I can actually dodge underneath Penetrator's thrust. How fun. As we're near the end and face off against the tankiest and most agile boss, I should say, this is not an F-tier weapon. It's better than the Greatsword, it's not as unwieldy in mobbing scenarios, it's faster and uses slightly less stamina, but it's still very slow and doesn't do nearly enough damage to make up for it in my opinion. I got through this fight by just tanking shit and weaseling in hits when I could. It wasn't as fun as a more agile weapon for me personally, but it wasn't awful. Now I'd almost forgotten to mention the worst part of this entire weapon. Upgrading it. I duped stones because I know by the time I get a pure stone, I'd have gotten enough shards and chunks for all the upgrades. Trimple. I farmed for 4 hours and had to dupe ephemeral eyes to get pure black tendency, which is allowed anything to speed up the farm. In that time, I got 38 shards and 16 chunks. Close enough. But I had to drop 80 shards because I couldn't carry them. The worst part? Great Axe is a large weapon, so you need 2 pure stones. I wasn't gonna do that. I value my time, so I duped the pure stone. But I take these things into consideration. That's atrocious, quite frankly. All that for kinda good damage. What a sick joke. Between the stones and the Flame Lurker incident, I'd love to put it in F tier, but I can't. It belongs in D tier because it is better than the Greatsword. Okay, bye. I'll be going back to Borderlands next, don't worry.